After 20 years of marriage, Hannah and I believed our love was unbreakable. But then one unexpected event shook that conviction, leaving me to wonder if it was truly just a coincidence. It opened my eyes to things I hadn't noticed before. For years, I celebrated our anniversaries in grand yet simple ways. Small adventures paired with bouquets of her favorite flowers. While I wasn't wealthy, I always found a way to make Hannah smile. She often scolded me for overspending, insisting that material things didn't define her love. Still, I knew she appreciated the thought behind my gestures. As our 20th anniversary approached, I resolved to make it unforgettable. Hannah had always dreamed of a riverboat cruise, and I was determined to turn that dream into reality. It would take a significant amount of money and effort, but her happiness made it all worth it. I began working late nights to cover the cost of the surprise. Hannah wasn't thrilled with my sudden workaholic tendencies. "Dylan," she said one evening, her voice tinged with frustration and concern, "you don't need to push yourself like this. What's the point of all this if it costs you time with your family? I spend so many nights alone while you're stuck at the office." She had a point, but I couldn't shake the image of her face lighting up when she saw the surprise. Our son, Wyatt, was now in college and training as a lifeguard. While he was a good kid, we'd never shared a strong father-son bond. He often criticized me for not providing enough, but I didn't take it to heart. One day, I hoped he'd understand the weight of supporting a family. When the anniversary arrived, I surprised Hannah with the cruise she'd always wanted, accompanied by a bouquet of her favorite flowers. She was touched but concerned. "I really appreciate how much you've done to celebrate us, Dylan," she said softly. "But we can't ignore our financial obligations, the loan, Wyatt's driver's license. It doesn't feel right going on this trip without him." After a moment, I nodded. "You're right. Maybe we should give the trip to the Williams family. They've been our friends since college, and we're at our wedding." It wasn't the solution I wanted, but I knew it was practical. Over the years, the Williams family had become a close part of our lives. Brian, my friend since college, and I had started our careers together at the same company. Later, we moved into nearby apartments, making it easy to maintain our bond. But in the late 1990s, Brian took a risk, leaving his steady job to start a business. At first, I thought he was reckless, but he proved me wrong, building something remarkable. Years later, he suggested we join a riverboat cruise together. "Dylan," he said, "let's sail down the Mississippi. My son can handle the business for a while. It's time he learned the ropes." By late May, we found ourselves aboard a cruise ship, enjoying scenic excursions, 3 lavish meals a day, and endless entertainment. Brian kept the laughter flowing with his jokes and generous supply of alcohol. Meanwhile, Aeon, a talented performer, captivated the passengers with his charisma. Hannah seemed especially taken with Aeon. She couldn't stop talking about his stage presence and charm. While I couldn't deny his talent, her fascination struck me as unusual. 2 nights before the cruise ended, things took a strange turn. After a bit too much wine, Hannah ended up completely drunk, a side of her I'd never seen before. Before her slurred speech and erratic behavior, Hannah had always seemed composed and in control. But that night, her actions felt jarringly out of character, leaving me embarrassed and speechless. Brian, visibly irritated, hissed, "Diane, this is unacceptable. Handle it." Before I could respond, the evening spiraled further into chaos. At one point, Hannah vanished. Panic set in as I imagined the worst, her stumbling off the deck or causing a scene. I searched frantically, and when I finally found her, the scene was surreal and deeply unsettling. Aaron, a crew member, stood awkwardly in a nearby stateroom, not in an intimate moment with Hannah, but beside her as she slumped in a disheveled and sickly state. She had too much to drink, he explained, his usual charm replaced by a somber expression. I gave her mineral water, but it didn't help. I brought her here to recover before things got worse. Aaron left shortly after, returning to his duties, leaving me alone with my wife and an overwhelming sense of humiliation. "What were you thinking?" I demanded, my frustration boiling over. "You've embarrassed me in front of everyone, including Brian." Her response was swift and devastating. Slurring but precise, she shot back, "I've been ashamed of you my entire life. You've never been able to provide, to satisfy me, to be the man I needed. And anyway, Wyatt is Brian's son." Her words hit me like a thunderclap. Memories I'd brushed off for years came rushing back with brutal clarity. The empty champagne bottles, 2 glasses on the table, unfamiliar flowers, and the faint but distinct scent of cologne that wasn't mine. Her explanations had always seemed convincing, but now they felt rehearsed hollow. Even Brian had let something slip once. I stopped by yesterday, but you weren't home. Hannah was in a great mood. She got me drunk, fed me, and put me to bed. Standing there, my world unraveled. Every suspicion, every odd occurrence suddenly made perfect sense. The resemblance between Wyatt and Brian, once a fleeting thought, now felt undeniable. When Hannah returned home after the cruise, she claimed she couldn't remember the evening's events. I confronted her, my voice heavy with years of unspoken doubts. Her confession was blunt and unapologetic. Brian never planned to leave Victoria, she said matter-of-factly. He wasn't thrilled about Wyatt being his, but he helped when he could. A month and a half later, I left the apartment and moved in with my mother. Life, it seems, has its own way of delivering justice. Hannah's world crumbled when Wyatt became involved in drugs and eventually served a long prison sentence. The heartbreak consumed her. At her funeral, only Brian and I stood by her grave. The irony was bitter. Unable to resist one final remark, I turned to Brian, my voice laced with pain and sarcasm. Thank you, brother, for all the happiness you brought into my life.